All right. Wonderful to be here with you, Sandra.
Thank you, Marina.
I want to start by introducing you to those who aren't already familiar, even though you do travel around the world and already teach Psych-K. But this is the first time that we're going to have a workshop in Maui, which is why we're talking to you. And I want to
Very
give folks,
exciting.
yes, me too. I'm so excited. And I want to give people an opportunity to understand a little more about your journey, what you have to offer, what Psych-K really is, how it works, and who might benefit.
Sure.
So, yeah, I want to start by introducing you from what little I've learned from meeting you in person one time, which was so
That
serendipitous.
was so incredible. That was the timing. Talk about divine timing, right?
Yeah, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I was in Maui with my husband. He was there for a work trip, and we've had the incredible blessing of getting to spend time on the islands over the years because we're in Vancouver, so it's just a lovely, gentle flight to be able to head to any of the islands. And he adores Maui because he loves to be in the oceans there. And I can't say that I disagree. It's such a magical place. And so we were there in March for a work function. And I had been talking to him for years and to myself about how much I loved spending time there and getting to know the people and the land and the animals. And I thought it would be just a magical place to be able to bring Psyche and possibly even the ideas of working with the horses. And actually, interestingly enough, I won't go into great detail about this, but there is a Lemurian connection with Psyche and Mu. So it's kind of interesting to be able to, if we think about it from that plane or that level or perspective, that maybe this has already been in the works for a while without us knowing about it per se, to bring it consciously forward. So I said to Greg, I really do want to find a beautiful place to be able to teach from. And I had looked online and tried to find places that way, but it just never seemed to come through. And I thought, I'm going to go online and just look at a few places maybe we could go visit while we were here. And when I opened my email, there was an email from this beautiful person who I'm speaking with now who was interested in coming to Vancouver to learn Psych-K. And so I wrote back to her, and I said, my goodness, because you in your email you said that you were in Maui. And I said, well, I'm in Maui right now. What would you think about getting together and meeting and just have a conversation to find out what you're interested in, why you're interested in learning Psyche, and what's possible in this regard, how we can link up about this and support you. And so we met and we had, I think, just a instant familiarity and comfort with each other. And from that arose a conversation to to bring forward the idea of bringing Psyche to Maui. And so we've been talking and emailing back and forth since then. That was March, and it's now July, and we're looking forward to being able to gather together in November to be able to share Psyche in Maui. So that's what I think is just the most incredible seeds that have been planted, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they grow into.
Yes, me as well. And my first impression of you was kind of like a fairy godmother.
I love that.
I just had this sense that you have this ease about you and kind of this sense of possibility and sort of I just feel this belief in the goodness of all people.
Mm,
And, in the wake of the fires that we've been dealing with here and all the trauma that's resulted from that, it
mm.
feels like just really perfect timing to bring this to Maui,
Yeah.
to be
It's
able
giving
to.
me little goosebumps as your little affirmation bumps as you're just talking about that, because that was, maybe we'll talk about that at some point during this call, but that was also a powerful and strong impetus for me about why coming to Maui. We have dear friends there. They're their home, the fire literally just stopped a house away from them. So we're in touch, but also completely removed at the same time from what's going on there and how traumatic and how big this event has been and how it's been affecting so many. And so part of the dream and the vision also is to be able to invite people whose lives have been completely transformed by this event, and to be able to support them. Because one of the things that, and maybe I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, but we're just talking about it now. I do specialize in trauma as a psychotherapist. It's one of the things that, for whatever reason, life tends to keep presenting me with. So to be able to become really adept and able to hold that with and for people, and then mainly the powerful capacity to be able to transform that so that they can transform that and reperceive the events of the past and even the present, and reperceive what we're afraid of happening in the future. So this process that we learn in PSYCH-K, that's called transforming the perception of stress. I'm certified in a lot of modalities, EMDR amongst them, which is pretty much the go-to. I know particularly in North America for working with PTSD, for supporting returning veterans, for people that are working as first responders and on the front lines. It's the bee's knees in a way to support that, but I just never use that anymore. Once I learned the process that we learn in PSYCH-K, which is also, for EMDR, you have to have your master's degree to go and receive that level of training. With PSYCH-K, you just have to have a desire and a curiosity. So I've shared this and taught PSYCH-K in middle schools all the way up to, I think the oldest student that's ever come was 85, and he was just this amazing, dynamic, powerful public speaker, actually, and some incredible stories related to his journey with PSYCH-K that I usually share during the workshops. So it's accessible, it's learnable, it's easy, and it's powerful beyond measure. Powerful beyond measure. So things that we've had that have upset the apple cart in a way, or that have completely affected how we're able to function, to dream, to live, to create, to heal. This process is so honoring, number one, but so completely transformational, number two. And to be able to then learn it for ourselves so that we've got that in our back pocket whenever we bump into anything along the way. And this is no way diminishing the bump that the fire was. This is not a bump. This is a cataclysmic shift. But to be able to work with that level of profundity, and also then to be able to even work with the idea of being a public speaker, or passing your driver's exam, or asking someone out on a first date, or transforming the effects of cyclical or multi-generational patterns, abuse, diagnoses, etc., dealing with health conditions. This process is just so far-reaching. There's nothing that I have encountered that it hasn't been able to support. And so I think at this time in the world, when Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about how we're kind of coming into that place of the next mass extinction, that really, how do we navigate these times in a way that's graceful, that's hopeful, and that's respectful to the people that we share our lives with, and all consciousnesses here on the planet. And that's something also that I love about PSYCH-K, is right in the basic workshop, in the foundation of PSYCH-K, are built in what we call the principles of nature. And what we're going to learn from these principles is how to essentially create a mindset that aligns us with her teachings. And I think that that's such a, I think that the people on Maui, who are so connected to the earth and the weather systems and the land systems there, this will resonate profoundly with people that are connected in that way.
Wow, that's really beautiful. I feel more relaxed just hearing you talk about that.
Me too.
Can you talk a little bit more about how PSYCH-K works for people that don't understand or haven't heard of it before?
Yeah. So Psych-K stands for psychological kinesiology. Sometimes people, when they hear the term Psych-K, they go, "Oh, what's that?" We go, okay, so this is what it is. And we work with applied kinesiology to be able to interface and communicate with subconscious beliefs and programs. The body is the subconscious mind. Candace Pert, who won the Nobel Prize for discovering the opiate receptor, I'm a bit of a science geek. I love learning about things from that perspective and have a background in that field. So to be able to hear her say that you're literally your body is your subconscious mind, and at the other end of the spectrum,
That's a really big one.
it is a really big one. So Carolyn Mace, who's a medical intuitive, so she might come at it from more of a spiritual perspective, would say that our body is our biology. Our biology is our biography. So the stories of our lives, pardon me, are written and stored in our cells. And so if we want to create real and lasting change, we have to work at that cellular level. We have to work at that biological level, at that subconscious level of mind, especially when we're talking about transforming trauma. And notice I use the word transform as opposed to release or let go of. This is an important distinction because the subconscious mind is habitual, and because it runs all the motor functions of the body, it's also the habitual nature of it is if we take something out of it and don't replace it with something else, then very often what was there will just return, and very often in a more magnified way. So we want to be able to approach the idea of when we want to get rid of something, it's actually more about transforming something so that it takes on a new shape, takes on a new form, has a new energy, has a new frequency, and therefore affects the entirety of the whole, as opposed to just that segment or that part. So working with the subconscious mind, I know that many modalities talk about the power of subconscious and how important it is to be able to utilize its gifts. And yet, even Bruce Lipton, for example, he talked about his discovery. If you have not had a chance to read The Biology of Belief or to watch any of Bruce's videos, I highly recommend them. Like, I can't highly recommend them enough. They're incredible. But after he would talk to people about the imperative of the subconscious mind, people at the end of his lectures would ask, "Okay, yeah, we're in. I'm all in. Tell us how to do that." And at that point, he didn't know. And many other practices also will say we have to be able to engage with the subconscious, but they're not necessarily teaching how to do that. And so I think Psych-K is quite unique amongst this. If we think about a herd of horses, it's, it might be the horse of a different color in a way when we think about it from that perspective. And it really does teach us how to be able to speak the language of the subconscious, but not just that. We're going to learn how to engage with whole brain practices and states, which create a super learning environment and create an optimal environment for us to be able to create change at the subconscious level of mind, in particular, identifying using applied kinesiology where we have subconscious stress associated with a dream, a goal, a situation, a relationship, an encounter, a memory, and to be able to, through the muscle testing, identify that, and then to be able to engage with the whole brain postures and processes that are taught during the basic workshop to transform that subconscious stress, and then to rewrite it, to replace it again, to transform what was a limiting belief initially, and to transform it into one that is now supported by the subconscious mind. And because, again, the subconscious is so powerful, these changes, these transformations, these rescriptings, these reperceptions can happen in just seconds to minutes. So sometimes people think, well, I've had that pattern for 40 years. I've carried that grief or that situation has been eating me up for decades. Well, just because something's been there longer doesn't mean it takes longer to transform, which is magical. So sometimes things that we've been carrying along for decades, they can shift and transform in the blink of an eye. And what's really beautiful about that is once we've opened the file that essentially has a limiting story written on it, and we rewrite the story and save it again. So we're really the printout. So when we change the software, then the printout of our lives is different. And sometimes people will say, well, the subconscious, isn't that kind of a scary, dark place? No, it's just a tape recorder. It's just been recording our lives since they began. And some of us believe that life begins at conception, some the second trimester, some at birth. Regardless of that, we've been downloading the environment, the beliefs in our environment, what we're seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching in our environment since the beginning for us. And so to be able to now go, okay, if I can identify where I'm struggling or where I'm succeeding, I can look at the world around me, which is a perfect reflection of what my subconscious beliefs are. So how your relationships are, let you know your beliefs about your relationships, and how you do financially or in a health condition wise, that lets you know what your beliefs are. And there's beautiful, incredible beliefs. Like if I even just think about your life, Marina, and how you just got back from this amazing holiday, and the encounters that you had there, the experiences that you had there. To be able to share what you do in your work, in your career, to be raising your daughter, like all the things that you've been sharing so far. This lets us know there's a warehouse full of positive, beautiful beliefs that you have. And then also you can look at your life and go, yeah, there's that part there it's a little bit prickly, or it's a little bit rough. And I would love that if it was more smooth. So then, okay, the world is showing you where there's an opportunity. The world around us is a reflection of our subconscious mind, our relationships, everything, etc. So the subconscious is not a scary, dark place. It's just literally been recording our lives and playing out those recordings, out emitting those frequencies, those vibrations, those beliefs, patterns that influence then our behaviors and our choices. So we just have to look around us to know, one, where we're on the right track, and two, where we might have gotten a little bit off the beaten path, so to speak, or maybe forget about the beaten path. Maybe now is the opportunity to be the path maker. That beautiful poem by Machado, which he talks about in terms of the Camino de Santiago, that when people go into the hostels there, or into the restaurants there, they always kind of shout out, path maker, there is no path. And then everyone shouts back at you, you make the path by walking you make the path. And I think that that's a great opportunity too. So if there's somewhere we want to go and we don't know how to get there, wow, I can create that reality for myself and with myself, or for my family, for example. So the possibilities here are infinite. And that's also very exciting. And sometimes for people, that's maybe a little bit frightening, like, oh my gosh, there's so much. Where do I start? Start where you are. What's the first thing when you look up and look around? What's the first thing that shows itself to you? It says, yeah, okay, pay attention to me, because I'd like to be able to show up in your life a little bit differently. Or I'm already showing up beautifully, but what would happen if I was even more magnificent? So to be able to create your life in that way. I think that was what happened for me when I learned PSYCH-K. I had a beautiful life already. So it wasn't necessarily that things were broken, but what I did, how I do describe it, is what PSYCH-K, maybe I think of myself as an artist with a certain amount of colors on my palette that I'm painting my life with. What PSYCH-K does is it gives us now a richer, more diverse palette to choose colors from, to be able to paint the masterpiece of our lives. So I like that idea a lot.
Well, that was a lot of really powerful and dense information. Thank you.
Sorry.
Oh,
I get a little bit carried away. I get a little excited.
I'm just still stuck on the world around us is a reflection of our subconscious mind.
Yeah.
So could you share some examples of people who have come to work with you or come to your workshops and have been able to identify these limiting beliefs that are impacting the world around them and what's changed for them.
Well, for maybe I can just start with myself. The riding accident that I had that really catapulted me into Psych-K, as much as I had learned it already and was sharing it with students and people in my private practice. I wasn't using Psych-K with myself at all. And so I had this riding accident that left me unconscious and broken. I lost most of my hearing and my body was very badly shattered. And so when I got home from the mountains, I started to use Psych-K with myself, and I started simply just with things like my body can heal. My body heals itself easily and naturally, completely and fully. Transformed the trauma, for sure, of the event. Trauma to the body, but also the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual trauma of having that kind of an accident. And then,
Can I interrupt you for a moment just
oh,
for
of course, yeah.
that sounds like a mantra, right? Or a positive affirmation. But how is it different the way you're using Psych-K with those statements?
Oh, because we're going to muscle test them. So it's affirmations are for the conscious mind. So, but you can say affirmations till the cows come home and nothing change if your subconscious mind does not agree with what it is that you're saying. So this is what's going to happen in the basic workshop is well, there'll be a series of statements that are created for us so that everybody who leaves the workshop has a foundation of beliefs to leave with. We're also going to learn how to write our own beautiful, magnificently delicious goal statements that are crafted just for us, that are personalized just for us. So I can say my body heals itself easily and naturally, or I had lost almost all my hearing because my head was smashed and stepped on. So to be able to, when the doctor says, well, those are like little, like this, like a chandelier in a cave of stone during an earthquake, and the chandelier smashes against the wall, and that you can't recover that. You're not going to be able to get your hearing back. But to be able to then go, well, what do I want instead? Which is the golden question in Psych-K. We're going to learn how to use Psych-K in our daily lives. And it comes down to this, oh, well, what do you want instead? So whenever we're struggling with something or bumping into something, or maybe reached a ceiling that I only seem to be able to get this far or this high, then what do we want instead? This is the question that we always want to be able to ask ourselves, because moving towards what we do want is very different than moving away from what we don't. That is a paradigm shift that even if we just consciously start to hear that now, because we are a don't want society, especially in the West. So when I say to somebody, well, what would you like instead? Or what do you want? Tell me a little bit about what your goals are. Well, I don't want to be depressed anymore. Very common answer, or some version of that. So notice how we're saying so often what we don't want. The subconscious mind does not know the difference. When we're focusing on something and it's a don't want, it's a depression, we're giving that as the destination to the GPS within the subconscious. So where do we go? More depression. This is what we're focusing on. So we have to be able to turn our inner compass towards what it is that we do want instead. Just making that shift in and of itself, even though we're not necessarily making the subconscious alignment with that. But if our conscious mind can always orient to the solution, to the joy, to the hope, to the peace, we just naturally get more of that, because what we focus on, we create. But now we want to make sure that the conscious mind is not just focusing there, that the subconscious mind is also supporting the focal direction of that. So in the class, we talk about, if you think about a little miniature horse, and that's the horse that's pulling you and carrying you along to this affirmation, as you were just describing. The statement, the goal statement, the belief statement. But if the subconscious mind doesn't believe that you're worthy of love, then the subconscious mind is like a million Clydesdales that are just anchored here. So this horse is going to try to pull you in this direction, and this is either neutral, doesn't have this belief, or perhaps it might even believe that you're unworthy. So now those million Clydesdales are pulling in this direction. So there's this one horse and a million horses. Just do the math. So we have to be able to, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take those affirmations, which are beautiful, absolutely beautiful, but we want to make sure that the subconscious mind actually believes them. And that's what one of the things that we learn in the PSYCH-K Basic Workshop, which is paradigm shifting. Right? So we have to, and we'll use muscle testing. This is what we learn in the class, the applied kinesiology piece, to be able to determine whether or not there's support or stress associated with whatever it is that we're wanting to create. Did that answer your question?
I mean, again, that was so much amazing information. I hardly remember what my question was, but it did make me it did make me think. Um, I'm curious how you see this, and you've answered it a little bit, but in parallel with other modalities. You talked a little bit about EMDR, and there's IFS, and now there's psychedelic therapies, and there's a really maturation of what's available to people that works with the conscious mind. And people have a variety of experiences with that, but I really want to discern what's fundamentally different about PSYCH-K. That's this really isn't another modality. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I don't know all of the modalities that you're referencing, so I can't speak to them specifically. But I can say that once I learned PSYCH-K, it really took over my practice. So for me, it's fundamentally different because it works. It works quickly. It works completely. It works profoundly. It debunks the myths that change is slow, that you have to know why you are the way you are in order to change. Typical psychotherapy is going to do an excavation and an archaeological dig of the past. We don't always have to know why we are the way we are to change, to heal, to transform. And even very often when we do, that's a conscious level of awareness. What are you going to do with that now? Mm-hmm. So for me, again, the missing piece, which is the title of Rob Williams, who's the originator of PSYCH-K, the title of his book is The Missing Piece, P-I-E-C-E, crossed out, peace, P-E-A-C-E, in your life, the missing piece/piece in your life. So I'm going to be a proponent of it because I, again, got knocked upside the head, literally, and started to use the processes that I've been sharing with other people, with myself. And to be able to come back to the question that you asked earlier. So first of all, how is it different? Because it really is being able to utilize the subconscious mind. It also engages, so we talked about the whole brain state just a moment ago. PSYCH-K is very wholly conscious, so we're working with the 3 levels of consciousness, which is the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and what PSYCH-K would call the superconscious mind. Now, many people would have different names for that. Connection to source energy, universal consciousness, God, Yahweh, the creator. So that spiritual perspective, the architect who looks at the blueprint of our life to let us know if building a room there is safe and appropriate, if balancing for that belief there is safe and appropriate. So in PSYCH-K, there is this collaboration with the higher self, however someone defines that. And therefore, we can never do any harm. So we always get permission from the superconscious mind before we do anything. That also makes it, in my mind, incredibly unique and distinct from most of the other modalities, which very often also rely on the experience and the expertise of a facilitator, of a practitioner, of a doctor, whoever it is that we're going to be working with. Whereas PSYCH-K is very much about empowering the inner doctor, the inner creator within the person that we're working with. And we embody a concept that comes from the Inuit people of the Canadian North, the Canadian Arctic, and the term is called Isumataq, and that means being the keeper of sacred space in which wisdom is revealed. So PSYCH-K is very much a do-with process, not a do-to or a do-on process. We work with our partner in profound relationship. And I think that also makes it a little bit unique in terms of what's available out there, because it very much is. A lot of people will say, well, I have this goal, I have this, and they come with their lists. But very often, once we ask those initial questions and we listen in a deep and profound way to the language that somebody is using, the language is letting us know what the subconscious beliefs and programs are. So one of the byproducts of learning Psych-K is you're going to hear, like your spidey senses and your hearing is going to constantly hear what people's beliefs are in the language that they speak and how they talk. And for sure, there'll be those beautiful, beautiful beliefs and goal statements, but there'll also be the places where they're stuck or where they're stumbling. And then when we tune into those, that's going to be the growing ground for what a session would very often be focused on. And sessions, in terms of the folks that I've worked with, everything from transforming cancer, transforming Crohn's, eliminating migraines, to creating new career opportunities, to harmonizing relationships, to being able to completely transform and wash away test anxiety for our kids when they're going to school, when they're changing schools, when they have exams up and coming associated with bullying and differentials and power within systems, to be able to create invitations and opportunities for businesses that are growing and developing, to create also relationships between partners when we're thinking about family systems. Really anywhere where beliefs are involved, Psych-K can support. And that's really every area of our life. It's not in any way saying, forget that you know this, forget the studies in this area, throw away this or that. No, it's not saying that at all. It's saying, bring me to the conversation, bring me to the party. Because even though, for example, someone who's an RMT, a registered massage therapist, and they're working with their clients in the beautiful way that they do. But for whatever reason, there's something that's just not shifting related to this mechanism in the shoulder, neck, the choreography in there. So then we can use Psych-K to be able to transform, because what Bruce talks about too in his lectures is when we change our beliefs at the subconscious level of mind, our biochemistry changes, our physiology changes. So I was just participating in the health and well-being workshop with Dr. Duccio Locati, which is one of the Psych-K workshops that is taught. And it's all about changing perspectives and shifting paradigms really related to health. And when we change the subconscious beliefs, it's incredible how the body reorganizes itself. And sometimes people will say, well, how can it happen so quickly? Again, because the subconscious mind monitors all the motor functions of the body, including hormone expression, including the electrical impulses that animate the muscles, including how we, if something's impalatable to us, it's hard to digest. So what is it about that? Is there a stress? Is there a trauma associated with that? Reactive responses. We work with allergies. It's just the breadth and the scope of Psych-K is just mind-blowing, mind-expanding, heart-opening. I really haven't come across something that it hasn't been able to support or help. And I know that's a grand statement, but I've been doing this since 2007 now. And it for me, because there was a number of other tools in the toolbox, I wasn't per se a traditional psychotherapist because I worked a lot with the horses, so that might even in itself be considered non-traditional. But I always want to help people get from A to B as quickly as possible so they can get on with the business of having a joyful life. And so after learning Psych-K and really, I would say over the years, becoming quite masterful with it, it feels it feels negligent to be able to, if someone wants to come and create real lasting change as quickly as possible so they can get on with the business of loving and living, then PSYCH-K is going to be the go-to for me. Now that does not in any way mean there's not other modalities out there that aren't in and of themselves spectacular and beautiful, nourishing and honoring. This is the one that has found me, even though I, kind of in the beginning, I think I said I wasn't really interested in learning it. It was just that my friend kept poking and going and go take it, go take it. And sometimes I think that we're meant to learn something that we don't know quite yet, so that it keeps coming back around to us. And sometimes when people come to workshops, they'll say that. They'll say, PSYCH-K's been on my radar for a number of years, but kind of now is the time. I think that that's an important thing to listen to as well. That when people say, well, when should I come? Or when your heart lets you know it's time. I think this is an important piece. So to be able to learn it, people from all walks of life come and learn PSYCH-K. And some people come to learn it because they want to add it into their professional repertoire, which that was the reason I thought I wanted to learn it. And other people come because they're dealing with a health crisis, or they're wanting to be able to support their family, their friends. So some people for very personal reasons, other people for more professional reasons, but inevitably regardless of where or why you think you're coming, very often PSYCH-K, once we start working with it, we'll have an awareness of why we actually did come. And it can be a little bit different than why we thought we might be there initially.
Wow. Well, I want to thank you and just also reflect back, since I do remember my question this time, which is that you're saying that PSYCH-K is unique in that it works with the subconscious, but also in that when we work with people, we're really working with their body, their subconscious, and not relying on the discernment or the intuition or any personal qualities of the clinician to
Yeah.
determine or the individual where to go or how to proceed. We're really asking the body as the subconscious, and that's really powerful and unique to have um, that anchor always to come back to.
Yeah.
It's right for the each being.
We'll ask the conscious mind what it wants, why it's here, and then there'll be a response to that. And then we check that the superconscious mind agrees that it's safe and appropriate for this conscious goal and desire to be brought to light. And then we check with the subconscious mind, which is the general contractor that chooses the best tool to create that change and that transformation. So the three levels of consciousness are constantly engaged and honored and conversed with during the process. So very much the partner's inner workings and guidance and awarenesses and beliefs are always leading, and we're there with them, but very much it's a person centered. Now, if you're thinking about, so Carl Rogers was one of my heroes in my training, so I'm sure that he is for yours as well. So being person centered, I would say PSYCH-K is very person centered if we want to come at it from that theoretical perspective.
Beautiful. Well, I feel complete for now.
Oh,
Thank you
that's so
so
fun
much.
that you say it that way, because at the end of every balance that we do in PSYCH-K, we check to make sure that the process is complete. So I love you're already tuning into it, Marina.
That's great. Well, this whole process has been really synchronous, and I hope it is for everyone who's watching or feels called to this. And I'm really excited to be able to offer this workshop that you're going to facilitate, that you're going to be instructing November 21st through the 23rd at Hale.
Mm,
And
beautiful, beautiful. The venue looks just so and feels so sacred.
it's a really special place.
Yeah.
And also, we're going to be doing a live Q&A on August 21st in the evening, Hawaii time. I think it's 6 p.m., but I'll clarify.
6 p.m. Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any closing thoughts or anything you wanted to add, Sandra?
Oh, just deep gratitude for you, for the invitation to have this conversation, and really the dream of being able to continue to share these processes with the people that feel called to come and learn about them. It's just a joy. I feel really in deep gratitude. So I want to thank you, and for everyone who's listening, we hope that we can see you in November.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for spending this time together and sharing all of your expertise and your mind and your heart. I really look forward
Mhm.
to hearing more at the Q&A and really excited for the workshop. So thank you again.
Thank you. Aloha.